Linton Oliver of Beckway, who resided in Windward, Carriacou, and Grand Mall St. George, passed away on Monday, 28 November, at the age of 86. He was the father of Walter Oliver, Vanita Oliver Georgeson in Canada, grandfather of Kiwani, Crystal, Bianca, Megan, Cordell, Tilia, Taylor, Abigail, Nazarene, Amanda, Vashon, Jaden, and Alyssa. Great-grandfather of Keisha, Kalia, King, Quan, and Aliyah. Brother of Stanley in Grenada, Ernest, Elda, Margaret, Alga, and Belinda in Beckway. Bertilda in Canada. Father of Curlin Oliver, Andrew Georgeson in Canada. Many nieces and nephews. Other relatives and friends including Margaret and Peter Clark and family, Jason Emmons, Vonnet Joseph and family in Carriacou, Devon, Uncle C and family, Nurse Alexis, Kelisha, Chanel, Davana, Neg and family, the Williams and Oliver families of Beckway, St. Vincent and Grenada, Mr. Tom, Peter, Mr. Charles, friends and neighbors of Beckway, Carriacou, and Grand Mall. The funeral of the late Linton Oliver of Beckway, who resided in Windward, Carriacou, and Grand Mall St. George, will take place on Thursday, 15th December at 1 p.m. The funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George, according to Catholic rites, and interments will be at the Wilberforce Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Joseph Cummins, also known as Brother Cummins of Brunswick, Carriacou, passed away on Thursday, 24th November, at the age of 93. He was the father of Valerie, Cathy, and Michael Cummins, grandfather of Shireen Alexander, Chantal Cummins, Nathaniel Stewart, Keisha Charles, Tanisha Stewart, Micah Stewart, Andre Cummins Lane, Rihanna Fergus Cummins, Dante Mackenzie, Tevin Davis, and Jameson Peters Cummins, great-grandfather of Terrell Cummins Anderson, Janae Cummins, Zane Miller, Sky, and Cameron Stewart and Avery Charles. Caregivers Linky, Jasmine Clement, Louise Joseph, Fiona Aline, Abigail Peters, and Jennifer Jaffia. Many other relatives and friends including the Cummins family in Trinidad, Tobago, Jamaica, Australia, Grenada, Carriacou, Aruba, USA, and the UK. Friends and neighbors of Brunswick and surrounding areas too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Joseph Cummins, also known as Brother Cummins of Brunswick, Carriacou, will take place on Thursday, 15th December at 2 p.m. The funeral service will be held at Christ the King Anglican Church, Hillsborough, Carriacou, and the interment will be at the family cemetery, Bellevue, South Carriacou. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Hendrik Edward Patris of Windward, Carriacou, passed away on Friday, December 2nd, 2022, at the age of 64. He was the brother of Shirley Steele, Petrock, also known as Pippi, Marcia, Alice and Roderick Patris, and Rosalina Patris Lendor. Brother-in-law of Helen and Christine Patris, Earl Steele and Brian Lendor. Uncle of many including Andy, Jacob and Travis Steele, Tessa McLeod, Fafina and Deondra Patris, and Rashawn Lendor. Other relatives and friends including the Patris, McLawrence, and Steele families, the Bethel, Compton, Eno, Martineau, George, Roberts, McQuilkin, Joseph, McFarlane, John, Desrochers, Lendor, and McGilvery families in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, the USA and the United Kingdom, the doctors and nurses and healthcare workers of the Princess Alice Hospital and the Windward Clinic, and friends and neighbors of Windward and surrounding areas too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Hendrik Edward Patris of Windward, Carriacou, will take place on Thursday, December 15th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's and Paul Roman Catholic Church, Windward, Carriacou, and interment will be at the McLawrence Family Cemetery, Windward, Carriacou. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. Michael Ford of Hackney, London, England, passed away on Sunday, November 20th, 2022, at the age of 63. He was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Ford of Latast St. Patrick. father of Junice and Navad, grandfather of Amari, brother of Bevelyn, Leonard, Dick and Tyson, uncle of Noel, Frances, Leroy, Cherie, Ebony, Luke, James, Beryl, Chanel, Darian, Kenneth, Latoya and Althea, grand-uncle of Tyane, Mia, Cameron, Josiah, Jalea, Elisha, Janiat, Gianna and Jair, Jasmine and Ryan. Many other relatives and friends in Grenada and England. The funeral of the late Michael Ford of Hackney, London, England, will be held privately. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Rudolph Walker of Vendham St. George, who resided in Alabama, USA, passed away on Thursday, 27th October 2022, at the age of 62. He was the husband of Eddie Mae Walker, brother of Wilma Nelson, uncle of Jermaine Walker, Alec and Elena Nixon. Many cousins, relatives, and close friends in Grenada, Trinidad, Canada, England, and the USA, including Samuel, Roll and Cecil, Sandyford, Justin, Ingrid, Valerie, Darlington, the Marichaud family, John Charles and family, the Frank family, and neighbors and friends of Vendham. A memorial service for the late Rudolph Walker of Vendham St. George, who resided in Alabama, USA, will take place in the USA. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Muriel Albertina Taylor of Griffin Lane, Grenville, St. Andrew, passed away on Thursday, 24th November, at the age of 88. She was the mother of Lennox Taylor, Elin Gabriel, and Marlene Taylor, residing in Grenada. Goderick Taylor and Sylvia James, residing in the USA. She was the grandmother of Jonathan, Janelle, Shaquille, and Shaquani in Grenada, Tito, Kurt, Kizel, Katisha, Abigail, Danielle, Sean and Jason in the USA, and Malon in Canada. She was the mother-in-law of Kenrick Gabriel in Grenada, Bruno Patrice and John James, and Selma Thomas Taylor in the USA, and Rosie Nixon in Grenada. She was the sister-in-law of Almira Taylor and Septimus Taylor. 5 sisters and 3 brothers in the USA and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Many nieces and nephews in the USA, Canada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Close friends including Nadia Phillip, Anne Edmond, Miranda Blanche, Maureen Christopher, and the Parrots family. Other friends from Griffin Lane and surrounding areas. The priests, deacons, and parishioners of the St. Andrew's Anglican Church and members of the St. Andrew's Anglican Mothers Union. The funeral of the late Muriel Taylor will be held on Friday, 16th December at 1 p.m. at the St. Andrew's Anglican Church, and then 2 men will be at the Granborough Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Wayne's Funeral Home.
Keith David Caliste, also known as Kezor, and Kezaball of Pomrose St. David, died on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 in Canada, at the age of 62. He was the beloved husband of Marcel Antoine Caliste, son of Edlin Caliste, father of Alicia and Kendon in Canada, Marlon in the Bahamas, Niffa, Ryan, Kamala, Andriel, Keyshawn, and Samantha in Grenada, stepfather of Crystal in Canada, brother of many, including Eastlyn and Jocelyn in Barbados, Kenneth in the USA, Pamela and Augustine in Grenada, grandfather of many, including Aaliyah in Canada, Miles in the Bahamas, Nikel, Nikela, Kadon, Prince, Celine and Chaz, Abriel, Michaela and Anil in Grenada, brother-in-law, father-in-law and nephew of many, uncle of many in the USA, Canada, Grenada, Barbados and Trinidad. Other relatives and friends including the management and staff of King Elvis, Smokey, Auntie Mary, Ingrid, Pajak, Dragon, Chris, the Moraine, Caliste, Antoine, Mitchell, Wickham, Marcel and Ross families, and neighbors and friends of Pomrose, Latente and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Keith David Caliste, also known as Kezor and Kezaball, of Pomrose St. David, will take place on Friday, December 16th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Pomrose RC Church, followed by interment at the family cemetery Pomrose. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. William Aloysius Mills of Marigot St. John, who resided at La Fortune St. Patrick, passed away on Saturday, November 12, 2022, at the age of 84. He was the father of Ermintrude, Justin, Keith and Sheila Mills, and Sandra Peter, all in the UK. Grandfather of 13. Many nieces and nephews, including Jean Buffon, Cecil Collins, Oswald Filbert, Dale Mills, and Greta Goddard in Grenada, Rita Collins in Trinidad, Trevor Mills in Tortola, and Eric Mills in the USA. Many grandnieces and grandnephews, including Desiree Collins, Hazel Mills, Sharon Rose Filbert, Caroline, Michael and Angus Buffon. Many great-grandnieces and nephews, including Jewel Collins, Emma and Yuma Buffon. Many other relatives and friends, including the Mills families in Canada, the USA, the UK and Grenada, Mrs. Joan McQueen and parishioners of the St. Patrick's Anglican Church, Mr. and Mrs. Holder, Rufus Smith, Ethelyn Willett, Doyle McQueen and family, Judith Richardson, Flory Richardson, Velda and family of Plains, and friends and neighbours of La Fortune, Marigot, Moya and Tivoli. The funeral of the late William Aloysius Mills of Marigot St. John, who resided at La Fortune St. Patrick, will take place on Wednesday, December 21st at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Matthew's Anglican Church, Black Bay, St. John, and entombment will be at the Family Cemetery, Old Road, Marigot. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Vernal Collins, also known as Teacher Collins, Brother C and Papa, of Montplaisir, who resided at Upper Depredin Street, Grove, St. John, a retired teacher at the St. John's R.C. School, passed away on Saturday, November 12, 2022, at the age of 83. He was the husband of Vernice Collins, father of Ella Abraham and Michelle Antrobus in the USA, and Dean Noel, stepfather of Jennifer Oxley, Sharon Ned, Patricia Louison, Karen and Royston Charles, grandfather of 33, including Carla Sylvester, Elizabeth and Ethan Abraham, Dionysia and Denicia Noel, Shanika, Frances and Dr. Petra Charles, Shaquelle Mathlin and Daniel Hannibal, uncle of many including Angela, Rita, Patricia, Judith, Robert, Val, Cecil and Malcolm, father-in-law of Errol Abraham, brother-in-law of Isla Smart, Dolores Modeste, Judy Lewis, Verna and Avis Francis. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends, including the Collins and Mitchell families of Montplaisir, Grand Roy and Marigot, the Charles and Francis families of Grove, the Fleming and Bernardine families of Mount Nesbitt, Jane Thomas, Catherine Gray, Clemis Mitchell, Cynthia Elias, Dr. Alban Phillip, Nurse Kathleen, members of the St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, the Boys on the Block, and friends and neighbours of Montplaisir, Grove, and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Vernal Collins, also known as Teacher Collins, Brother C and Papa, of Montplaisir, who resided at Upper Depredin Street, Grove, St. John, will take place on Thursday, December 22nd at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church, Grove, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Rosanna Latouche, also known as Miss Rosie of La Femme St. David, passed away on Thursday, December 1st, 2022, at the age of 97. She was the mother of Raphael Evans, also known as Selwyn, Michael Samuel, also known as Uncle Mikey, Dr. Anselm Latouche, also known as Glenn, Lawrence, Esther, and Albert Latouche, grandmother of 55, great-grandmother of 13, mother-in-law of Jacinta Evans, Claudia Samuel, Maria Latouche, and Denise Latouche, aunt of Gregory de Gans, Jean Brazan, Maureen, Lydia, Helen, and Oris Lewis, caregiver Rachel John. Many cousins, other relatives, and close friends, including Nelsia and John Evans, Joan James, Kelvin Dominic, Yolande Bowen Curtin, the Latouche family, the pastors and members of the Mennonite and Gospel Hall Church, doctors and nurses of the Pedmotar Medical Center, and friends and neighbors of La Femme and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Rosanna Latouche, also known as Miss Rosie of La Femme St. David, will take place on Thursday, December 22nd at 11 a.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, according to Grand'Anse Baptist rites, followed by private cremation. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Agatha Elizabeth Jeanette Thomas, also known as Grams, Tanti Kate and Kate Andrews of Caliste St. George, passed away on Monday, December 5th, 2022, at the age of 67. The funeral arrangements for the late Agatha Elizabeth Jeanette Thomas, also known as Grams, Tanti Kate and Kate Andrews of Caliste St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Reynold Charles, also known as Ray and Ramcoon, of Monroe Street, Victoria St. Mark, passed away on Saturday, December 10th, 2022, at the age of 49. The funeral arrangements for the late Reynold Charles, also known as Ray and Ramcoon of Monroe Street, Victoria St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Dominic Fitzroy McFarlane, also known as Nick, father and teacher of Winwood Carriacou, passed away on Thursday, December 8th, 2022, at the age of 67. The funeral arrangements for the late Dominic Fitzroy McFarlane, also known as Nick, father and teacher of Winwood Carriacou, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Horace Anatole Dialli, also known as Go Papa, of Duquesne St. Mark, passed away on Thursday, December 8th, 2022, at the age of 87. The funeral arrangements for the late Horace Anatole Dialli, also known as Go Papa, of Duquesne St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Kendon Anthony Mark of Lamode St. George, who resided in Brooklyn, New York, died on Saturday, 19th November 2022 in New York, at the age of 37. The funeral arrangements for the late Kendon Anthony Mark of Lamode St. George, who resided in Brooklyn, New York, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Kimberly Bell of Woburn St. George died on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, at the age of 39. The funeral arrangements for the late Kimberly Bell of Woburn St. George will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Percival Kenneth Alexander, also known as Paul O. of Snellhall St. Patrick, passed away on Sunday, November 20th, 2022, at the age of 92. The funeral arrangements for the late Percival Kenneth Alexander, also known as Paul O. of Snellhall St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Desmond Collins, also known as Casey or Carlo, of Old Westerhall St. David, died on Sunday, November 27th, 2022, at the age of 66. The funeral arrangements for the late Desmond Collins, also known as Casey or Carlo, of Old Westerhall St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Fiona Frances Worm of St. Jules and Grand Ball, who resided at River Road, St. George, passed away on Thursday, December 1st, 2022, at the age of 54. The funeral arrangements for the late Fiona Frances Worm of St. Jules and Grand Mall, who resided at River Road, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Austin Cosnell Frank, also known as Casino, of Vendham St. George, died on Tuesday, November 29th, 2022, at the age of 96. The funeral arrangements for the late Austin Cosnell Frank, also known as Casino or Vendham St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
John Jones, also known as Baptiste, of Rose Hill, who resided at Maddie St. Patrick and London, UK, passed away on Friday, 2nd December, at the age of 82. The funeral service for the late John Jones of Rose Hill, who resided at Maday St. Patrick and London, UK, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
In loving memory of Anna Morgan, who departed this life on December 10, 2020. Left to cherish her memories are her loving husband Bertrand Morgan, children Norma and Shirley in the USA, Sandra, Barry and Merlin in Canada, and Roslyn and Tony in Grenada. Grandchildren, great-grandchildren, sisters, other relatives and friends. Mom, you will forever have a place in our hearts. Sleep in perfect peace, Mom. We love you. Saying thanks to everyone who sent their prayers and well wishes. Arrangements were entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home. In loving memory of Darren Brandon Honoré, also known as Jaminik, Pucker and Chubby, who departed this life and went to be with the Lord on December 9, 2021. You gave no one a last farewell, nor ever said goodbye. You were gone before we knew it, and only God knows why. 1,000,000 times we will miss you, 1,000,000 times we will cry. If love alone could have saved you, you never would have died. In life we loved you dearly. In death we love you still. Your memories live on. Oh, how well we remember all the special times we had, sharing good times and bad. The bond we had together, a bond of love and joy. You are missed dearly by your mother, Sharon Wise Honoré, father, Desmond Honoré, sisters Sammy, Lonisha and Sorana, brother Lonnie, your 2 children having to grow up without you, all your nieces and nephews, especially Cyree, your cousins, especially Christelle, your aunts and uncles, especially Veron, Junior and Jacinta. We all miss hearing your laughter and the jokes you told. Life will never be the same without you. We appreciate the love and support given to us by the Horsford family, the Paul family, and all your friends and colleagues. The Bus Association, especially Mr. Derek McKenzie, for always reaching out on a regular basis, expressing how much they miss their Pucker and Chubby. Thank you, everyone. Darren, we think of you every single day and will keep you in our hearts forever until that day we unite again. We love and miss you forever, Darren. Continue sleeping in peace. Funeral arrangements were entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Death and dying are the inevitable events and realities of life. The passing of a friend or loved one often brings with it the feelings of sadness, grief, and pain. There is always the period of sorrow and mourning for those who experience such loss. Brothers and sisters, particularly in this time and season of how you feel and what you may be thinking as a result of the passing of your loved one, there is a source and means of comfort that you can tap into. That source and means of comfort is God and His Word that speaks specifically and directly to our situation. Hear the word to you today. He says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." What I believe he is saying through this verse to you and everyone that is now experiencing some measure of grief or sorrow, and what I also believe is implied in that which he says, are the following. Mourning is an understandable, normal, and real expression of your emotions. Mourning presents the opportunity for us to experience the comfort of family, friends, and loved ones. Mourning identifies us with each other in our humanity and morality. Mourning will not last forever. It is for a particular season and reason. Mourning connects us with the ultimate source and means of comfort that is always available to us, God, our Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ. And so today, we look to the Lord in prayer. him who is able to comfort us with the comfort that we need in times like these. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of comfort, we pray even now for those who mourn and are in need of your comfort. May your love embrace them. May your grace afford them the strength for each day and hope for tomorrow. May you inspire and motivate them to stand upon the promises of your word. And may your Spirit lead and direct them to the ultimate source and means of comfort, which can be found in you and the promises of your word. This prayer we offer through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.